Why is Ian out of breath? Because the guys just tore down the Scrambler to add wiring, gauges, exhaust, and oil pan, transmission, sway bar, drive shafts, wicked U-joints, dual fuel propane, bumper, a trick winch that cools itself, brakes, and cables. This show's hot!
Hey guys and girls, welcome to another wonderful day here in the Xtreme neighborhood. Now today we brought one of our favorite projects back into our small two-car garage for another day of work. And you know, when you head out into your garage, it's just an exciting way to spend the afternoon. You change into your work clothes, and sometimes it just kind of changes your attitude towards things. You get all ready to work, and you just want to grab a grinder, and you gotta grind on stuff and make a cool truck. The last time we worked on our Jeep Scrambler project, we blew the entire project apart so we could line the inside of our tub and our frame with some Dupli-Color bed liner. We located and wired up the harness, installed the dash, and tossed in a fuel tank. We built some custom exhaust and installed the radiator. Now before we roll our chassis back underneath our mezzanine, our small two-car garage space we put together here at Xtreme, we need to deal with a clearance issue we've got on our small block Chevy engine. Deep sump pans like the one that came on our used motor are great for street engines. But on our Jeep, we're gonna have a slight interference with the drive shaft. So a stock steel pan from O'Reilly Auto Parts will take its place. Behind our small block, we're gonna be putting a Turbo 400. Instead of rebuilding one out of a junkyard, the guys from Monster Transmission hooked us up with this complete crate unit. Now we let you guys pick the drivetrain for this project, and you picked the Turbo 400 and the 203-205 combo. And we mocked up one that we pulled out of a junkyard last time, and we honestly planned on rebuilding it. But we changed our plan when we started to inspect the transmission. We found the back of our junkyard transmission had a crack right here at the back of the housing. Now that's pretty common in these 400s when you have that big 203 hanging off the back of them. The problem there is we already had $150 into that transmission. We go buy another one from a junkyard for another $150, there's $300. The rebuild kit to rebuild this 400 to match this crate transmission costs $600. Right there, we're at $900 total. Now this crate transmission comes in at just over $1,000, so it's a little bit more money, but we get a full warranty, complete bolt-in unit. Monster Transmission built this 400 specifically for our Jeep, utilizing an upgraded pump, new direct reverse input drum, heavy-duty accumulators, and a reprogrammed shift kit that'll help this thing tear into the dirt. Now our new heavy-duty low stall speed converter will lock up just below 2,200 RPM. Now last time, we went ahead and mocked our exhaust system into place, and we took it all out, welded it, and sent it out to get coated at nitro plate. Now the nitro plate coating does a couple of things for us. It keeps the heat inside the exhaust and lets it flow out the tailpipe. Less heat is radiated out of the exhaust system and it won't get into the passenger compartment. It'll keep our exhaust system nice and rust-free for a long period of time, plus it just looks good. Now while we're under here dressing things up, we also dressed up our transfer cases with some finned aluminum covers that we got from C&M Machine. Just because we're working in a small two-car garage and we're going to put a body on top of all this stuff doesn't mean we're cutting any corners. Now, drive shafts front and rear on this Jeep are both from JE Real Driveline Service. Now, on the rear, we're using a new type of constant velocity joint called a coronade joint. Now, there's some technology here, a little bit different than a standard CV, and you can really tell the difference when you compare the two. Our front shaft is just a standard CV joint because it doesn't see as much rotation. It only turns when we're in four-wheel drive. You can see there's a large build-up area right here designed to attach the two joints. Now that has to be there to hold the joint together, but the downfall of that is that mass is on the outside edge of the shaft. So as it turns, it can actually start to whip and vibrate. The coronet joint has taken the attachment and moved it down to the inside of the joint itself, and there's a little cam push and pull here to attach the two. Now that should keep this thing from vibrating as much. Now the design around these U-joints, as you can see this mass right here, is designed to pull the heat out of the needle bearings as these things turn around. The needle bearings in there can actually get pretty hot. Having that little extra beef there helps draw the heat out and helps take it out and radiate it out and cool it off. The joint provides less vibration and lasts a lot longer. Now, not too long ago, sway bars were considered bad news when you were wheeling. It would really limit the articulation of the front axle, so guys were disconnecting them or just taking them off and throwing them away. Now, a better solution is to install an off-road specific sway bar, like this Currie Enterprises Antirock bar. Now, this is a bolt-in kit for a Jeep TJ, and it has a lightweight torsion rod that fits through the front of the frame. Now, it'll keep our body roll to a minimum, but still allow us to articulate when we're on the trail.
More to come on our Jeep Scrambler, plus a little fire safety lesson. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to Xtreme 4x4. Now, if you guys remember, the plan for this Jeep is to build a one-of-a-kind truck, but do it in a small two-car garage space, not using all the fancy tools and the fancy machinery that we have in the rest of the shop, but then not hold back on the custom touches. Make it be able to lay the smackdown on the trail and also look good while doing it. Things like our steering 14-bolt front axle, I think is definitely one of a kind and yet indestructible. Now we're going to add a piece of induction to the top of our engine as just one more custom touch. Now, there is no question that propane injection is cool, and it really benefits us when we're out there doing hardcore wheeling, when the truck is leaned over or even upside down, still delivering that fuel to the engine to keep it running. But when you're out there just doing easy wheeling, mild trails, or driving on a fire road, we're actually wasting that benefit. Now, with this new system that we got from Propane, we have the ability to run a dual fuel setup. That means that when we're just out there easy wheeling or driving on a fire road, we can run on gasoline. But when we need to hit the hardcore trails, with a flip of a switch, we can have propane injection thanks to this mixing hat that goes on top of our carburetor. The propane system uses a pressurized cylinder, so we don't have to have a fuel pump, and we don't have to worry about spilling fuel when the truck is off camber. The mixing hat installs over our carb in place of the air cleaner, and the fuel line is hooked to the top. Before getting to the mixer, fuel travels through a regulator as well as a blow-off valve to prevent excessive pressure in the lines. An inline filter keeps the fuel clean, and then finally the hookup is added for the tank. Now, the key to making this dual fuel system work is this small solenoid and this 3-position switch. When we want to run our Jeep on gasoline, we'll simply put the switch in the lower on position. That'll turn on our electric fuel pump and bring fuel up to the carburetor just like normal. When we're getting ready to switch over to propane, we'll go ahead and turn the switch to the middle position. That'll turn off our electric fuel pump, and it will also close this solenoid that'll be mounted in that fuel line. That'll block off any fuel from possibly getting to the carburetor. Now, the carburetor will still have some gas in it. We'll just burn that off, and when we start to feel the motor run rough, we'll go ahead and turn the switch to the up position. Now, that will activate the propane solenoid. Propane will flow from the tank up to the mixing hat, and we have an injected engine. With the Aerosol electric fuel pump mounted inside the skid plate for protection, we'll fasten the fuel line to the frame rail with some made-for-you plastic clamps. While we're running braided hose, we'll go ahead and add 2 -6 hoses to our transmission fluid outputs. Attach them to the chassis using the same clamps, and then hook them up to a Hayden transcooler mounted at the back of the frame. The Hayden cooler has an integrated fan to help keep the fluid cool. That makes it ideal for this type of installation. Now the gasoline side of our dual fuel setup is actually pretty simple. Now we've already gone ahead and installed one of these electric fuel pumps down inside our skid plate. And this is an Edelbrock carbureted electric fuel pump. Now we chose the electric pump so we could switch it off and not deliver any fuel when we're on the propane setup. Now when we get that fuel up to the back of the motor, we need to run it through a regulator or the fuel will just overpower the needle and seat in the carburetor and cause the engine to flood. So we're using one of these Edelbrock carbureted regulators. The fuel will come in one port and then out to the carburetor itself, and you adjust the pressure with this little knob on the top. Now this is not a bypass style regulator like you'd see with an EFI kit. A bypass has a secondary line that goes all the way back to the tank to keep the fuel circulating and keep the pump cool. Now when it comes to steering on our Project CJ8 Scrambler, we had a couple different ways we could go. We could use a very common mechanical setup, and that would include this steering box like this that we got from PSC. It is drilled and tapped for hydraulic assist, and that would help make the steering a little bit easier even with 42-inch tall tires. Now there's a downfall to this setup. The box mounts on the frame, and there's a tie rod that goes off the pitman arm down to the high steer arm on the axle. Now that tie rod can limit the articulation of the axle when we're off-road. Now we're after true off-road performance here, so we're not going to run this setup. We're going to run something that's a little more common in the crawling crowd, and that is full hydraulic steering. Now the heart to a full hydraulic steering setup is this steering ram. Now this is a 2.5-inch ram that we got from PSC. It'll mount to the axle and to the tie rod that connects the two upper high steer arms together. Now the nice thing about this setup is as long as the fluid lines are attached to this ram, the axle can articulate as far as it wants. We'll always have full steering control. With a piece of tubing cut to length, we'll build a tie rod using some tubing adapters and some QA1 rod ends. Then we'll mark and drill our high steer arm. The cylinder will mount to the same bracket as the panhard bar and then connect directly to the tie rod. Now our rolling chassis for our Jeep is pretty much all taken care of, and now we can start to put a body back on top of it. We're going to start right at the front bumper and move through to the back. Now for the front bumper on this truck, we decided to go with a Sniper Fab winch bumper. Now they come in two different varieties. You can get a fully welded, ready to bolt on bumper made out of 3/16 plate, or you can have them break it apart and send it to you in a kit that you weld together yourself. Now we chose the kit that we'd weld together ourselves for a couple of reasons. Number one, our frame is custom, so we knew we'd be modifying this mounting plate. But more importantly, we got to choose a new cutout in the front, and that just seemed to make better sense. The frame tube on our TDK frame is slightly narrower than a stock TJ. So we'll test fit the side pieces, tack them in place with our 110-volt welder, little bit of trimming with a cutoff wheel. Save me, I'm on fire, save me! And then finally weld the entire thing together and paint it a nice coat of black. Now a winch project like this for you guys working in a two-car garage is a great first-time fabrication project. All the heavy lifting is done, all the cutting and bending and measuring. All you have to do is weld it together, even with a small 110-volt MIG, and it turns out great. Now we chose this bumper mainly because it's a winch-style bumper, and we're going to be putting a winch on the front of our Jeep that is very unique. Now Warren has just come out with this brand new 12.0 endurance-style winch. Now just like all Warren winches, it has a high-quality electric motor, 156-to-1 planetary gear set, pre-spooled with aircraft cable, and this thing can handle a 12,000-pound single-line pull, which is pretty impressive for the size of this winch. But the very interesting feature is this little motor right here. Now this is a small electric fan motor that you mount elsewhere on your vehicle. It'll bring in cool, dry air through this filter and then pump it out through this fitting. It'll travel down a typical heater hose to a small elbow on the back side of the electric motor. Now that'll flow cool air all over the electric motor while you're using the winch. Now what that means is you'll be able to run that motor longer, so on those long pulls, your winch won't overheat. That's why this winch earns the name Endurance. And with the winch bolted onto our new bumper, we can finally get our Jeep looking more like a Jeep. Welcome back to Xtreme and our Jeep Scrambler. With the chassis taking shape, we can get the body back onto the frame and make our truck look a little bit like a Jeep again. Now our braking power is going to come from a couple of stock used components that we got from Davies Jeeps. Now Davies Jeeps is a wrecking yard specializing in used Jeep parts, and we asked them to keep an eye out for a good used master cylinder, booster, and bracket assembly, and after some time this is what they put together for us. Now obviously it's in pretty good shape, so it was probably replaced by the previous owner. We know it's going to work fine on our Jeep. Now the pedal assembly, it's in a little rougher shape. It'll obviously need a coat of paint, and it is out of a standard transmission shift Jeep. All that means is the brake pad is a little bit smaller, but once we clean this up, it'll bolt right onto our firewall. Our Aqualoo body comes scribed with the location for the booster on the firewall. Once we drill out the mounting holes, cut a spot for the brake rod, our master cylinder bolts right up. Now we picked up a pile of parts for our Jeep all from Low-Car. We got the usual flexible transmission dipstick as well as an engine dipstick. We got a throttle pedal that'll mount to the floor as well as a throttle cable and a kickdown cable. Now for the Turbo 400, the kickdown cable is fairly unique, and a lot of people don't really understand how the kickdown cable works. So I went ahead and mocked one up on this carburetor in the vise. Now on older non-computer controlled transmissions, when you accelerate, you're basically pulling back the throttle cable with the gas pedal. At the same time, the carburetor is pulling out on what often is referred to as the kickdown cable. Now the transmission calls this the throttle pressure cable. Now what that does is it tells the transmission how hard you're pressing on the gas, and that will determine when the transmission shifts or downshifts when you pull it to pass somebody. Now on a Turbo 400, it's pretty unique because instead of hooking up to a valve inside the valve body, it activates this small switch on the side of the transmission. Now that's no big deal for a car that came with a Turbo 400 because you usually had a switch right on the gas pedal. But when you swap a Turbo 400 into a vehicle like our Jeep, we don't have that switch. We need this little box that we got from Low-Car. Now inside this box is a micro switch. We'll have 12 volts applied to one side of the switch, and then the other side will go out to that transmission switch. When we step on the gas, a barrel valve will come along and activate the micro switch and tell our transmission to downshift. If we didn't have this installed on the 400, our transmission would never downshift when we stepped on the gas unless we pulled it back manually. Even then, the pressure inside the valve body would be less because it doesn't know that we're at full throttle. That could cause premature clutch failure and even transmission damage. Now the next time the Jeep's in the shop, we'll be taking care of all the little things and then firing this beast up for the first time. But before we head out today, we want to drop the hard top on to give it that last custom touch.